Hello, fourth grade families. Welcome to our virtual back to school night. The purpose of this is to give you an overview of our year in fourth grade, introduce you to your students' teachers, to give you a sense of our daily schedule, a little bit of our routines and practices that we have in fourth grade, as well as our academic content for the year.
We wish we could be here in person with you and show you our wonderful space that your children are hanging out in every single day, but this will be a great substitute, and we're going to give you lots of information. And at the end, we'll explain to you how you can get in contact with us if you need anything.
First, a little bit about me. My name is Lucas Velasquez. I have been teaching at Emerald now for 7 years. This is my 7th year. Last year, I taught online only to 4th and 5th graders. So once I did that, I can now say that I have taught every single grade except kindergarten. This is my 15th year altogether of teaching. I taught in Boulder Valley to start my career. I moved away to North Carolina and taught there, taught 4th and 1st grade there, and then moved back and taught 1st grade and 3rd grade and 4th grade. So like I said, I've taught every grade except kindergarten. And I'm super thankful to be back in the classroom again. I'm very much looking forward to being in person. Online only was a bit rough, but we did it. We made it through, and let's hope that we can continue to stay in person. Once again, I'm very excited to be working with your students in the building. I have a master's in math education, so you will probably hear from your students that I absolutely love math. I hope that I can help them love math as well. We'll see how it goes. I also love sports. I'm a huge homer. I love the local teams, the Broncos, the Buffs, Avalanche, Nuggets, Rockies. And in fact, I've named all of the tables in my room after those teams. And so you'll probably hear a little bit more about that from your students, especially when it comes to table points, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. I love food. I love coffee. Your kids will probably mention that too. But I love to eat, and I love good food. I love going out. And unfortunately, this last year has been a little bit of a hindrance, obviously, to being able to do that as much as I wish. But again, hopefully we'll get back to more and more of a sense of normalcy as we go along. But I also love traveling, and I love outdoors. I love to go camping during the summertime, spending time by the pool, and that sort of thing. I, this year, have a kindergartner at Emerald. I am also a dragon parent, just like you. I also have an older son who is in 7th grade, but he's in Jeffco. My wife is a scientist who sometimes comes and does some talks for the kids, sometimes brings some dry ice and freezes some things. We do some cool science activities. We've done that in years past. I hope that we can do something like that again. And that's pretty much information about me.
And for those of you who haven't met me, I'm Mr. Clark. This is my 12th year teaching. Before I came to Boulder Valley, I taught in Denver Public Schools for about 8 years, and now this is my 5th year here at Emerald. I really love it here, and just like Mr. V, I have my own Emerald Dragon here. My daughter Addison is in 3rd grade in Miss Skidmore's class, and it's really been wonderful to have her here. So I feel like I'm truly a Emerald Dragon, and I have a great perspective from both the parent and the teacher side. In addition to being a teacher at Emerald, I am a student as well. I'm working on my doctorate degree in educational leadership at the University of Colorado in Denver. This is my 3rd year of the program, so assuming everything goes well, I'll be graduating in May, and I'm really excited and looking forward to that. A couple other things about me. I grew up in Chicago, and so some of my favorite teams are the Cubs and the Bears, but I've also will root for the Colorado teams as long as they're not playing my teams, right? I also love the outdoors here. I love hiking and snowboarding in the winter and playing board games. One of the things that my family has really gotten into throughout the pandemic is playing lots of board games together. And I've really enjoyed that and built up a little bit of a collection. And I'm excited to share that with your children, my students, this year as well. In years past, we've done a board game lunchtime, and I'm hoping to get that started again soon.
Now let's talk a little bit about our daily schedule. When your students arrive at 7:50, they are able to come up and grab breakfast. We do provide universal breakfast to everyone if they so choose. They then sit at their table and we go over some important things for the day, our announcements from our principal, Mrs. Williams, as well as just kind of catching up on different things, what's going on in their lives and things like that. After our morning meeting is over at 8:15, we then go into our first reading block, which is actually what we call our interactive read aloud. Typically, that's where we have a really good story, a chapter book, picture book, that sort of thing, where we do some really rigorous thinking about that book. It's not just simply a passive read aloud. That's the reason why we call it an interactive read aloud. We like to ask a lot of deep thinking questions, have the kids talk to one another. And oftentimes those books will lead into our official mini lesson that we do in our reading block later on in the day, and even many other lessons throughout the year. After that, the kids then go off to specials at 8:50, and they return at 9:40. When they return, we go right into math, my favorite subject. And for math, we break into a few different groups. So depending on our pre-assessments and that sort of thing will kind of shape how our groups are formed. So you may end up having a couple of different math teachers. Your student may have me or Mr. Clark or Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Boos. So those can and sometimes change. After math, we have our official reading block where it's a much bigger block than the morning, and where we do our reading mini lesson. That's where we might take that book that we read in the morning and incorporate some of those things into their independent reading. We also do our reading groups around that time as well. And once that reading time is over, we then go to recess and then lunch. After recess and lunch, we come back for science or social studies. We alternate between those two subjects. We'll talk a little bit more about what are some of the topics this year later. After that, we have our writing period from 1 to 1:45. Our ELD teachers pop in at that time, and we'll introduce them in a little bit. After writing, we have our sort of third reading portion of the day. This is where we continue to do some more guided reading groups and small groups. And then we also have an intervention period where kids can catch up, and they can also get some of that extra attention that they may need from different interventionists and teachers in the building. Once we're done with that, we like to end the day by filling out some planners and getting our things ready for dismissal. That's basically our schedule in a nutshell. The only difference is, of course, on Wednesdays we have late start. So that's when our day starts at 8:50 instead of 7:50. And again, this year is that we have an extended school day. So our day ends at 2:50 instead of 2:30. The Wednesday schedule is just slightly different. The morning is a little bit more compact, and specials start at a little bit of a later time. But for the most part, the afternoon is essentially the same as our normal Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday schedule. Let's talk about math. This year in fourth grade, your students are going to engage in quite a big jump in their mathematics than they did in third grade. We're going to be spending a lot of time at the beginning of the year reviewing place value with addition and subtraction strategies. The kids will learn several different methods for adding and subtracting, and eventually hone their preference to the most efficient strategy possible. And hopefully for them, that will be our standard algorithm that we're used to. Later in the year, we'll get into multiplication and division with those larger numbers. In fourth grade, we do not go over the standard algorithm, the one that a lot of adults are used to. In multiplication and division, we do some different strategies that are going to help build their conceptual understanding. If they are ready for it, then we do start to introduce some of those things. But officially, that's not really a fourth grade standard. It is more of a fifth grade standard. But like I said, we kind of do that on a kid-to-kid basis, depending on how well they're doing and if they're ready for something like that on a conceptual level. We really, really want to encourage you to help your students really understand and be automatic with their basic facts. Those are really, really helpful when it comes to fractions, especially. In fourth grade, we do a lot of work with fractions, adding and subtracting, simplifying, comparing. And knowing their multiplication facts and being able to switch back and forth with multiplying and dividing those basic facts is really important. It's going to make fractions a lot better for them in the springtime. We also switch math teachers. I mentioned that earlier, that we have Mrs. Smith, who comes and helps us out. We have Mr. Clark, myself, and Mrs. Boos. And we like to give pre-tests at the beginning of each unit. And based on those, we like to then break the kids into different groups depending on what they need in order to get them to the fourth grade standards. In some cases, they might be able to breeze through it, and we might need to extend them to some maybe a little bit higher math, or at least maybe go at a little bit of a quicker pace. And sometimes we just need to really kind of build some of that foundational work before they get into some of the fourth grade stuff as well. So those groups are subject to change. They're not permanent. You may find that your student ends up with one teacher a little more often than another, but like I said, that can certainly change unit to unit. Additionally, we have a lot of different resources. We have our math expressions workbooks and pages that we like to assign for homework. We also use Khan Academy to supplement, which we push out through Schoology. And we like to incorporate some games and fun activities whenever possible. Again, hopefully we can make math fun for them by the end of the year.
Next up after math is our reading time. Over the past couple of years, we've begun using a new curriculum called Fountas and Pinnell Reading Program. It's a really comprehensive program that incorporates a lot of different aspects of reading. One of the things that I enjoy most is our interactive read aloud, and that's how we'll typically begin the day. These are going to be a lot of very high quality, diverse picture books. And we'll stop and we'll talk about a lot of things in the picture books depending on the lesson for the day. It may be a lesson around theme. It may be around character. If it's a nonfiction book, we may talk about text features and all different things like that. We also will read a few chapter books throughout the year. We've already started reading The Wild Robot, which is one of Mr. V and my favorite books to read. In addition to the read aloud, we will do some mini lessons where there's going to be targeted instruction. Again, it might be things around character, theme, how to write a reading response, and that sort of thing. We always incorporate lots of independent reading throughout our day. We'll have time set aside during reading for them to choose a book and read it. And we talk about strategies about how to pick books that are just right for them. They'll also be doing a 40-book challenge this year where they will write down and they'll read a variety of books from a number of different genres as well. In the afternoons, they will also be doing some phonics work and some word work based on the program, and we will be doing reading groups. And your child may be in a number of different reading groups throughout the year. Some of that's based on their reading level. Some of that is going to be based on what specific skills they need to work on. And finally, we'll also be doing some book clubs this year where students read either a chapter book together or a number of different picture books, and then they discuss those as a group and work on their comprehension and dig really deep into an author or a theme and that sort of thing. After we wrap up our morning, then we begin our afternoon with science and social studies. This is one of the reasons that me and Mr. V really love teaching fourth grade. In fourth grade, we get to teach students all about Colorado, including the geography of the state, the history of the state, and the government. In addition to social studies, we also get to teach science, and in there we'll talk about things like landforms and fossils, which we're also going to tie back to Colorado, since students will need to know how the land has shaped the state and where people live, that sort of thing. And also, there's such a rich fossil history in the state as well. And then finally, we talk about energy and magnetism. This is something new for fourth grade, and we'll spend a lot of time talking about physics and how that works. So we're really excited to dive into that and to get to teach it.
Writing. 4 out of our 5 days in writing, we are joined by our wonderful ELD teachers, Mrs. Stoddard and Mrs. Arlington. This year, we are going to be doing some personal narratives, writing about stories from our own lives, as well as some realistic fiction, especially at the beginning of the year. Later on in the year, we will get to some persuasive writing where the kids are going to get a chance to choose some sort of social topic that means something to them, and then hopefully convince their readers to take some action. And then finally, we will get into some more informational writing. And this, in the past, has been a combination of science writing and some social studies writing when we incorporate Colorado history and things like that into our writing. Those are our topics. And again, our co-teachers during that time are our ELD teachers. I work with Mrs. Stoddard more regularly, and Mrs. Arlington works with Mr. Clark more regularly. We do like to combine. We do like to mix things up. So at times, your student may have any one of us for their writing teacher.
Finally, we're going to wrap up our day by writing down our homework and into our planners. These should come home with your child every single day. Typically, we're going to have homework Monday through Thursday, unless there's something else major going on that week. One of the activities will always be to read 25 or more minutes at home. Students can bring home a book from the library here, or if you have books at home, those are great too. In addition to the reading, there will be typically two other tasks that students need to do. One is almost always going to be some sort of math sheet or math activity that they'll be doing at home that will relate back to what we've been working on in class. The other thing is going to usually be a conversation topic. This might be talking to you about something that we did in school that day. It might be talking to you about something that we're preparing to teach with the students and starting to build their background knowledge. But go ahead and look in their planner, and there's always going to be something to talk about with your students. This is also a great solution for the problem of asking your student about, what did you do in school today? And they're saying, I don't know, or nothing, because I guarantee we did something that day. So this will be a way to help engage with your student about what they actually did in school each day. On Fridays, you'll also typically look for information from the school about upcoming events. And typically in the past, you may have noticed stickers coming home with your child on their shirt. We'll be putting those in their planner. We find that they tend to end up on the carpet or around the room when we do the stickers in 4th grade. So look for those in your planner each day, and those will notify you about important events happening at school. In addition to the planners, you'll also see that your student has a take-home folder. Contrary to the slide, these are actually green this year. The take-home folders will be a good place that the students should put any worksheets that are coming home with them, or on Fridays, they may include those flyers about upcoming events or different things going on in the community. You should also look out on Fridays for some finished work that comes home from your students. These may include math worksheets or pages from writing or social studies and science work. Just take a look, and there should also be some of that in there. Folders are typically should stay in the backpack. Students will, pull them out at home, give you what they need, and put them back in their backpack. And then when they're at school, they're also going to leave them in their backpack until the end of the day when they need to put their new work in there.
One of the things I love about Emerald is that we have a positive behavior system, which means that we believe in recognizing good citizenship, good learning behaviors, academic improvement, and achievement. And we use the acronym FIRE, focus, integrity, respect, and empathy to capture those philosophies. We like to use different positive reinforcement. One of the things that we do a lot is fired up tickets. We have a couple of versions of those, actually. We should have different names, but unfortunately, you're going to hear fired up tickets, and there's a couple of types. So the first type is actually one at the top there, and you can see that it is really, that one's supposed to be more for like an academic achievement. Oftentimes we give those out for when kids make really tremendous growth on their iReady scores, or if they're getting, doing really well on their math quizzes or tests, or maybe they're really starting to master those math basic multiplication facts that we talked about, that sort of thing. The other type of fire ticket we have is the little green ticket. And sometimes those change colors, but those are the ones that we give out in class for individual behaviors. That's when we see kids making really nice transitions, maybe working really well as a teammate or cooperatively in their small groups, that sort of thing. We give those out. And in my class, we often collect those in little baggies, and we will periodically have a fire ticket trade-in where kids can go to a treasure box. But rather than giving out little trinkets and toys and things that I think are just kind of a nuisance, instead we like to give out experiences. And in my class, we call them mystery packets. And basically the kids will trade in some tickets and they'll get a mystery packet. And sometimes that'll be something where they can come in at lunchtime and have like a little mini pizza party with some friends, or maybe they can come in and play on the Chromebooks, play games during their lunchtime. Or I've even had an indoor snowball fight before with some snowballs that I bring from my house, and the kids get a chance to do that and have some fun. We also like to give out fire stickers. These are ones that probably your students very familiar with, especially in the primary grades, where if we see some exemplary fire behavior, we give them a sticker and they can go and they can create a bracelet using those beads for fire, focus, integrity, respect, and empathy. And then the last thing in my class, I mentioned before that my table groups are named after sports teams. I like to have the kids sitting at those table groups usually for about a month. And during that month, they can earn table points. And the table at the end of the month that has the most points, and those points are earned in very similar ways, showing fire, but doing it more as a group than individually. And at the end of the month, the winning table gets to decide what they want to do. Sometimes, again, that's having a little pizza party, maybe making a slime together during their lunch, that sort of thing. So again, one thing I really love about Emerald is that we have this system. And the last thing I will mention is that we also really love to reward our citizens or students of the month. Every month we will have a Fired Up assembly where we will honor a student of the month, one from my class, one from Mr. Clark's, and the specials teachers get involved as well. So you may be familiar with this, but your student may be recognized as student of the month. And when that happens, we send you an email and we will ask if you would like to be present for that. In the current circumstances, all of these will probably be virtual, but at some point we hope to be back in the gym having these assemblies once again. And at that point, we will invite you in personally. So stay tuned for something about that. But that's pretty much our positive behavior system.
One other thing we want to make you aware of is the tool known as Schoology. Last year, if you were in BVSD and your child was a third grader, you probably used Seesaw with them and became familiar with that. In fourth grade and older, we actually use a different platform known as Schoology. So this is our online platform, similar to Seesaw, where we're going to upload a lot of our work and anything that kids may need, especially if they have to miss some time due to COVID or quarantining or anything along those lines. So we've already shown your students how to get into Schoology, and we're going to continue to work with them to be able to navigate around through there. But we just wanted to make you aware of this as the tool that we're going to use in case your child does have to miss some significant time in the classroom due to things that are going on with the pandemic. So if you have more questions about this, start by asking your child and they can show you how to get there. Otherwise, shoot me or Mr. V an email and we'd be happy to go through it and explain it to you.